Hello. Hi, Anis. Can you hear me? Hello. Anis, can you hear me?
Hi, Karishma. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm
Okay, I
audible?
can hear you now.
Great. How are you, Anis?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for asking. So I think let's just start quickly because it's already the time is there.
Sounds good.
Great. Let me just start the webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. This is Karishma, Marketing Manager, High Counselor, and welcome to the webinar with Anis Hasnain, Program Manager at Google. So quickly, today we'll discuss the agenda of the webinar. And here we'll start with a brief High Council introduction. Then we will introduce you to our guest speaker, following with the Q&A session, which is an opportunity for you to ask questions from our guest speaker. So before we get started, I just wanted to give you a few ground rules and information about the structure of the webinar. Today's webinar will follow a question and answer structure. So our host today means I will let you ask questions from our guest speaker. So how you can ask questions is you will be able to comment in the comment section in the YouTube where we are live, and you can even share it with your friends, and you can even like the video. Before we turn it over to our guest speaker, we just quickly want to introduce you to ourselves. Who are we? So we are High Council, an online and mobile platform that helps job seekers and students to land their dream job by connecting them to employees who work at their dream company. As I'm sure you all know today, getting coaching from a company insider can dramatically increase your chances, not only to ensure that the job you're aiming is for the right fit, but also land into your dream job. So stay tuned until the end of the webinar and we'll give you a lot more information about it. Also, we'll be hosting regularly free events like this. So please sign up to our platform so that we can keep you updated about our upcoming webinars. So Anis, I would like to welcome you. Thank you so much for coming and participating with us. Thank you so much for your time and participation. Anis, we would love to know about your experience, professional background, if you can share that with us. Over to
Yes,
you.
thank you so much for having me. So in terms of background, I have gone through roughly 3 different careers thus far since graduating from college. So I first began my more formal career working in fundraising and development in the nonprofit space. So helping nonprofits secure sustainable sources of income so they could better serve their communities and pay for their expenditures and operating costs. From there, I migrated into a recruiting role within the tech industry. So I was hiring for most pockets of Google, ranging from our digital advertising side of the business to our cloud technology unit, at times working with our hardware divisions, and eventually transferred into my current role as a global program manager, where I partner with senior leadership within the Google Cloud customer team, specifically our customer engineers, so our technical customer facing folks, to make sure that they have the processes, assets, and programs they need to be successful. So while that kind of sounds like 3 different career paths and sounds like a lot of hopping around, in reality, what I noticed job over job is I really loved working on strategy. I really loved working on operational efficiency And I really love not just solving a problem for an immediate issue, but really thinking about the root causes and thinking about how I could empower a team or an organization to never experience that problem again and be set up for success. I think some of this stems from the fact that I am an abstract thinker and I enjoy being creative. And I also, care deeply about the teams that I work with. And a way that I can show my care is through kind of taking away the small stuff so folks don't have to sweat it, so they can continue applying their creativity to novel and ambiguous business problems.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your lovely experience with us. So great. So Anis, could you please tell us more about the role of a program manager?
Yeah. So what I think is really fascinating about program management is it's so diverse. And so while that can be very encouraging because there's a lot of different ways in which this role can express itself, it sometimes can make the career path feel a little inaccessible because it can feel almost too ambiguous to know even where to start. So I think, at its core, program management and program managers really flex some consistent skills. So that includes things like stakeholder management. So making sure that you're building the right relationships, that you're guiding your stakeholders through making key decisions, coming to conclusions and agreeing with one another so you can proceed forward. So you use a lot of facilitation skills and communication skills to make sure that's successful. Something else that you also do is you work on these big picture problems, but you have to keep the small details in mind. And the small details can range from ensuring that whatever you're creating is, keeping the user in mind and putting the user first. So whether that's an internal group who might be using a particular asset or sales process and ensuring that it really does fit into the day-to-day of their work, or an external group who might benefit from some of your work and making sure that what you're building really gels with them. And then I think, the third bit is sort of having the perseverance and gumption to really wade into an ambiguous situation or a tangled mess or a tangled ball of yarn and help to unpack it. So, sort of being unafraid of doing a really wide range of work and, trying things that might be new to you, or being humble enough to seek subject matter experts when it makes sense to make sure that things are executed upon in a timely fashion. So what this can then look like in the day-to-day is everything from, being a product manager, so to speak, and guiding an engineering team through launching a solution and keeping a variety of business metrics in mind as you design your product and see if it's profitable, all the way through, working in a people operations or HR function and ensuring that every step of a recruiting process, for example, is designed to be efficient, is designed to provide the right experience, is designed to provide all the stakeholders involved with what they need, whether that's the recruiter or the candidate or another function of HR. So what's really great about this role is it can express itself in a number of ways. And really what you're doing is partnering with the key stakeholders and leaders, across the teams that might be invested in a business problem and facilitating the success of achieving a particular goal.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much, Anis. So, apart from this, what is a typical day like a program manager?
Yeah, so at least for me specifically, there's no such thing as a typical day. And that's actually one of the things that I love about program management. I don't do very well when I'm bored, and program management definitely keeps me on my toes. So my days can look anything like, creating a training video to highlight a particular process we're launching, or highlight best practices, or make sure that new hires or transfers into a role really understand, how to get a particular job or function or process done. Sometimes it can include creating meetings to um, compose either pre or post-mortems, depending upon what stage of a business problem you find yourself in. Sometimes it can mean doing discovery and diligence work to really understand a problem. So uncovering all of the data sources and insights that could be relevant and help you better figure out how you'd like to proceed forward. Sometimes this means working in a fire drill capacity should something arise that you weren't really anticipating, and folding that back into your project plan. So it can be a really broad range of assignments and pieces of work. And I think this is where, one, you get to flex a really broad range of your own skills. You get to grow a really broad range of skills that you might be interested in investing more in. And it's also a really humbling experience, because there are sometimes going to be opportunities where it makes more sense to loop in a subject matter expert to get the job done, and really feeling comfortable reaching out for help and involving the right people to kind of side by side build things with you as you move along.
Wonderful. Seems quite challenging, I believe. Yeah. So great. So, yeah. So, what is the most fun part of your job?
I think for me, the most fun and rewarding part of my job is when you're able to do effective change management. So a huge component of program management is also making sure that whatever changes occur as a result of your efforts, that they're done so in a way that is thoughtful, that aligns with the day-to-day of the folks involved, that feels as seamless as possible and doesn't leave anyone kind of lingering in the dark, right? It makes it as clear and structured as possible, communicating the why and the how. And it's something that's so difficult to do, but when you get it right, nothing feels better, because you played a critical role in so many of your peers and potentially so many of your friends and so many of your colleagues really having a better experience at work. So it's, for me at least, I see program management as a really beautiful way of combining an appreciation for the people around you and an appreciation and excitement for the business goals of your organization, marrying those two things and really being able to execute upon it.
Great. And can you tell us 3 differences between product manager and program manager?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of differences, it's mostly the problem that you're solving. So for example, as a product manager, I might be tied to a particular solution or a particular product and really honing in on making sure that that product is developed to address a user need, that we're partnering with marketing to position it well within the market space, that we're taking in feedback from consumers and using that to update our product roadmap, versus a program manager might be focused on a different type of business problem. So within my role, for example, one of the programs that I run and focus on is getting technical documentation published to cloud.google.com. So that's still very much an important business function. It still plays into the successful sale, so to speak, of a product or solution, but it's focused on a different business problem, focused on a different business outcome that ties into this broader business goal. Another key difference might be the stakeholders you work with. So typically as a product manager, you're working with the product builders and some of the cross-functional teams, who are positioning themselves specifically around that product. Within program management, your stakeholders might be a little bit more far-ranging. So I work with everyone from legal to public relations to recruiting at times, to all different facets of our sales team, to our customer engineers, our solutions architects. And it can have a really broad range in that sense. And then I would say the third difference is sometimes the depth of technical skills required ranges from a product manager to a program manager. So as a product manager, you want to be able to speak the language of the engineers that you might be working with. As a program manager, if you're in a program management role where you're doing a lot of dashboarding, you're doing a lot of data analysis, it might make sense for you to have SQL skills or dashboarding skills or feel very comfortable working in that realm. However, there are other program manager roles where perhaps that is not as primary and you might be flexing other types of skills. So those skills could be communication skills or stakeholder management skills. They could be storytelling skills, because sometimes, being able to relay the program and relay its impact across an organization internally is very important in ensuring that you're building the right connective tissue and internal strategic partnerships to get the most impact out of everyone's work. And maybe you are that key figure in developing those things if they did not exist before.
Thank you so much, Anis, for the lovely answer. So, what do you think, like, what job search strategy should be used for a program manager position?
That's also a great question. So sometimes this can be a little bit tricky because roles that utilize program management skills don't always list themselves under the title of program manager. Sometimes you might see the title product manager, you might see the title project manager, and then you might find roles that have a completely different title, but really benefit from someone having program management skills. So keywords that I look for when I'm, reviewing potential opportunities or reviewing, potential new roles are things like stakeholder management. The word cross-functional can be very key. Anything that implies some degree of strategy, and then also perhaps the word execution. So really boiling down to those keywords that describe a program manager role or experience and seeing where those might bubble up. I think for folks who are interested in a program management career path, my number one piece of advice is to really reflect on what aspect of a program manager role really excites you. Because you can spend time applying to program manager roles, but if you really know what excites you about it, then you can also spend time applying to roles in a broader variety that might leverage the same skills, might leverage the same things. So let's say that you're super passionate about solving a particular type of business problem, and in order to do so, you need to take a program management approach or use program management skills. You can look for roles within that job function or search for roles based on that job problem. If you're more inclined to take on any program management role because you just love flexing the skill set and you're sort of business problem agnostic, then maybe looking for the title of program manager and starting from there and filtering out which opportunities sound the most exciting is the best way to go. If it's a particular skill set of a program management role that you find really attractive, then searching with that as your primary keyword or using that as your starting point might not be a bad idea. So I think some of it just comes down to, we can control and influence ourselves more than anything else. And if we spend that time self-reflecting and really understanding what gets us excited, what gets us passionate about this type of career when we discuss it, it can be a little bit easier to find those types of roles. I will say that a technique that I have found to be very useful is doing a lot of day in the life chats or coffee chats with people who are in roles that I think I might be interested in. So usually most people are more than willing to share more about their experience and how they got there. And even just asking for, a 15, 20, 30-minute conversation to say, would you mind walking me through what the day-to-day of your job looks like and the types of skills you use? One, you can suss out if that's truly an opportunity type that you'd be interested in. And two, you can start hearing the industry jargon, so to speak, used in context of their business problem, of their work. And that can help you reframe your own experiences to better understand what job opportunities you should go for. And should you make it to an interview stage, how to frame your experiences to really relay to that hiring team that you are the best one for the role.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And so what do you think, like, what educational qualification is required for a program manager?
Yeah, it can really range. So for myself, I currently have a bachelor's degree in sociology. I think sometimes people joke that sociology is not necessarily a profitable major, but for me, I found it to be very useful because sociology encourages you to practice critical thinking. It also encourages you to really assess sort of the systems and structures at play within a particular societal problem. And for me, that was really helpful in program management because, again, I'm not just thinking about Band-Aid solutions and addressing a very, very specific problem. I want to solve for that problem, but I want to get into the root of the issue and see if we can solve for the problem at scale or prevent it entirely. I'm also currently in grad school part-time, pursuing my master's in organizational leadership and learning. And this master's specifically is focused on how do we design effective organizations? How do we groom leaders who will be effective within the modern industries and the modern world? And how do we create organization-wide learning? And part of that is because what fascinates me are things like change management, learning and enablement, and really the how you go about getting folks to adopt a new process or new asset or new program. That being said, let's say that you're interested in program management work that is a little bit more technical. Maybe having some sort of educational experience that prepares you for that is not a bad idea. I think what's great about program management is if you were to get a room full of program managers, I would imagine there wouldn't be two of them who had the same life story or had the same career path to get them to the role they're currently in. And I think it really speaks to the diversity of, this type of role and this type of career and the different types of things you can do with it. So some of it really comes down to, again, that self-reflection piece of understanding where your strengths are, where your passions are, where your opportunities for growth are, and what you'd like to actually grow in, and applying that to the different opportunities that you're taking on.
Thank you so much, Anis, for the answers. So do you think any particular certifications that can help an applicant to break into a program manager job?
Yeah, so for me, I found that getting my Scrum certification, so learning, agile techniques was really helpful. It didn't, make or break whether I got a role, but it's something that gave me another framework I could apply to my program management approach. It gave me more information about what folks might be looking for in a candidate or what might be top of mind for a hiring team. So I found that to be quite useful. There are other product management programs and program management certificates that you can study. I've actually found it more useful for folks who are joining my team for headcount we've opened up, or folks that I've coached in the past to pivot into program management roles. I found it more useful for them to spend their time focusing on how do I frame my experience thus far within the lens of program management. So, for example, I used to be in recruiting here, which is a very different career, and sometimes viewed very differently from other pockets of the business. And when I was interviewing for my current job as a global program manager, I really had to frame my recruiting experience within the lens of program management. So to my recruiting managers, I might say I made, 15 hires, and this was the experience that was reported via surveys, and here are all these metrics you care about. For program management, I talked about how I hired at scale, how I navigated through different processes, how I facilitated stakeholder alignment on a candidate or candidates to make sure that everyone felt comfortable moving forward and felt they had enough information to make a hire or no hire decision. So I think, you can get certificates. You can always seek out additional learning opportunities. And I would encourage you to do so if you identify a gap in your skill set, or if you're curious about learning more, or if, that's a way in which you can kind of field if this is a good career progression for you or not, based on what you'd like to do with your career. But I would also encourage you to really take that time to think through your experiences thus far and apply that program management lens and frame to them.
Great. Thank you so much. So, Anis, apart from this as well, what do you think are the 3 tips to make your resume stand out for this position?
Yeah, I think a certain degree of tenacity. So you have to be a little bit stubborn to be a program manager, just because typically you're operating in a great deal of ambiguity, and you usually don't face the same problem twice. So there are best practices you can take from business problem to business problem, but you need to have a degree of perseverance. Just because you're stepping into something that is likely new to you, that is likely new to your stakeholders. It could be a novel business problem that no one's solved before in this particular context, and you need to be that steady, calm, driving, facilitating force. And if you're unsure of yourself, everyone else is going to feel it around you. So I think having a little bit of tenacity is very important. I think, really having a good degree of emotional intelligence. So really being able to read and understand and empathize with your stakeholders can be a very powerful tool. So for example, if you are expected to launch something halfway through the year and you are working with folks who are in a sales organization, they might be concerned about meeting their quotas to ensure that they get paid. And that, might mean things for their financial security if they have dependents or a family, or even if it's just they're responsible for themselves. Having that emotional intelligence to really understand and analyze the people you're working with can help you develop more thoughtful approaches to partnership. So maybe that means baking in, additional leeway time at the start and end of each stage of your project plan to ensure that there's wiggle room should something be missed because there's a big conference coming up or a big customer deal or a big revenue date. It could mean making sure that when you lead a meeting, you are providing an agenda, and when you're facilitating it, you are keeping yourself steady and calm and sure, so that way other stakeholders also feel steady, calm, and sure. And then I would say, the third piece is kind of thinking at scale. So in an ideal world, the best program managers, probably their stakeholders don't know how much work they're putting in because they have made things so steady and so seamless, and they have found ways to kind of remove themselves from the business problem by creating a process or creating an asset that really solves the core issue that they can then move on from. So really thinking in that strategic lens of, it can be very easy, especially in the tech industry, to get caught up in this short-sighted mindset of, our house is on fire, we just need to put it out now, we'll deal with the rest later. And it's really having the balance of facilitating that, approach to arising business problems, and then also keeping that midterm, long-term in mind and implementing those strategies as well.
Superb tips. Thank you so much. So, what do you think, Anis, are the 5 most common interview questions for the program manager role, or required for this job position?
Yeah, another great question. So I would say one is, being able to provide examples of stakeholder management, particularly when it was a hairy situation. Maybe there was an upset stakeholder, maybe there was tension, maybe there was extreme disagreement across stakeholders. Being able to communicate how you navigated that situation and, both what was the outcome and also what did you learn from it that you now apply to future scenarios. That bit about being able to demonstrate that you learn and then apply those best practices to the next problem you encounter, I think is very important. I think a second bit would be, simply providing an example of a program or project you've run and feeling comfortable talking about the different components of it. So talking about, really determining the business problem, determining the solution approach, determining how to best engage the stakeholders involved, keeping everything on track and on time, conducting the postmortem to think through what could be done differently or better next time, or what went really well. I think a third question that might be asked is, what is your communication style? Different program managers will approach things with different communication styles. I know folks who are quite directive, who prefer, to be very formal and direct and very, very clear. I myself prefer to take a more social approach and to take an approach of, I want you to kind of enjoy this process we're embarking on together to create whatever it is that we're trying to create. Feeling comfortable knowing what your communication approach is very useful, because if it differs from what a hiring team might be looking for, you can demonstrate that you're able to flex into that style as well, because you're self-aware of where you tend to communicate and how you tend to communicate. So that way you can branch into these other realms. I think that was 3 questions. I'll think through 2 more. So I would say a fourth one could be, to be able to highlight a time in which a program or project failed. It's not all sunshine and rainbows in program management. Sometimes things go off the rails. Sometimes business priorities shift. Sometimes you realize, further in that you're not resourced properly. You can encounter a really wide range of obstacles. And I think being able to show that you have the awareness to acknowledge that sometimes there are obstacles outside of your sphere of control and influence is really important. And being able to say, this is what I would do differently next time, or here's what I learned from this, is very critical. And then I would say, a fifth question that you might be asked is, maybe examples of times you've worked cross-functionally. So that might be a more high-level or introductory question, but it can demonstrate your familiarity and comfortability working with stakeholders who are very different from yourself. So for example, in my role, I find myself working with legal quite often, and their subject matter expertise is so different from mine, and their framework is so different from mine, and their business motivations are so different from mine. And I have to be able to find some sort of middle ground, or find a way to kind of communicate in their language and tailor my messaging to that audience to be able to partner more effectively with them. So being able to share examples of when you've worked cross-functionally can be very useful, because you can demonstrate that you have that adaptability, you have those communication skills, and you have the capacity to flex into those different directions. I think that was 5.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm sure, our all attendees would love these tips. So could you please help us even, what are the 4 skills that a program manager should have? Top 4 skills.
Top 4 skills. So I would say stakeholder management. I would say within stakeholder management, you could include facilitation, strong communication skills. I would say, strategy and operation skills. So again, being able to zoom out into that big picture and also execute on the small details. And then 4th, I would say, is emotional intelligence. And that becomes really critical in building strong, meaningful relationships, and also assessing the stakeholders and audience members or end users that you might be working with, to ensure that whatever you build makes sense and works for them.
Great. And thank you so much. So what are the 4 challenges do you face in your job as a program manager?
Yeah, so as much as the ambiguity can be super exciting, sometimes it is a little stressful. Sometimes it is a little stressful to not know, what your next week of work is going to look like, or, what your next day is going to entail in terms of the problems you might be solving or skills you might be flexing. So I think having a pretty healthy tolerance for ambiguity is really important, and having patience for yourself and for the organization and for others can be really useful. I think sometimes another pitfall is, as a program manager, you're typically leading without direct authority, so you're leading through influence, and sometimes you feel the repercussions of that, where someone might be a little bit less willing to listen to you because you might not have direct authority. So I think, just being mindful of that up front and being very comfortable in that type of leadership space is important. I would say the third is, launching something and having user buy-in and user adoption is sometimes a little bit dependent upon trust, especially with internal programs. And trust is oftentimes created by communication and sometimes even over communication. And so I think an obstacle or a downfall I see some program managers make from time to time is not communicating enough, or communicating enough, but not communicating in the right channel or in the right tone or in the right method to really reach your audience. And then fourth, I would say is, it can be somewhat easy to burn out in this type of role where it feels like there's an endless to-do list. So sometimes there's an obstacle or a challenge, and program managers not taking the proper steps to practice self-care and practice setting up those healthy boundaries around work and life, and those healthy boundaries around pacing themselves, which can lead to burnout.
Thank you so much, Anis. So here comes my next question. What is the career path of a program manager?
Yeah, so I've seen it go in all sorts of different directions. I've seen folks who are program managers move into product management. I've seen them move into marketing. I've seen them move into sales. I've seen folks move into leadership roles. I've seen them move into more specific strategy and operations roles. I've also seen folks make a career out of program management, and they either tackle different business problems or they tackle similar business problems across different companies or across different industries. So, being a program manager makes you very versatile. I think you develop a very wide range of skills. And so there's a lot of different directions you can take your career in. And it just comes down to, like I said earlier, framing the work that you're doing within the context of the team that you're looking to join.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And here comes my last question, Anis. What three advices would you like to give aspiring candidates to be successful in program manager role?
Yeah, this is a great question. I would say first and foremost, don't be intimidated. I can promise you that most program managers probably feel like they're not really sure of what's going on most of the time. Part of the charm of program management is that you maintain that cool, steady, calm demeanor and continue chipping away and continue chugging away. But even folks who are very tenured run into ambiguous situations where they think to themselves, honestly, I don't know, or oh my God, what is this? Or, have some concerns about how they might handle it. So, first and foremost, don't be intimidated. If this is a career path that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, pursue it as ferociously as you might pursue anything else that you really want to make happen in your life. Um, I would say a second piece of advice would be, have those coffee chats, talk to folks who are in program management roles, ask them what they do in their day to day, ask them what types of business problems they're solving, and just develop a really robust knowledge of the different ways in which program manager skills can be flexed across an organization. It can be so useful to hear someone talk about their day to day using the lingo and the jargon of program management within context of a business problem. And it also gives you some insight into the types of work streams that you might be doing or the types of things you might be thinking about to really see if it's a path forward for you that makes sense for your career. Um, lastly, I would say I cannot emphasize enough that piece around framing your experience within the context of the hiring team that you're interviewing with or the team that you're looking to join. And this is true whether you're just submitting a resume and you want to have the strongest application. You're going to want to frame your experiences in the language of where you're looking to land. When you're interviewing, you want to frame your language of stories within the context of what that hiring team cares about. I think sometimes it can be very, very enticing to say, listen, I've accomplished a lot in my current role and I'd like to highlight that. And I would challenge the perception that it's diminishing your work and instead say you're highlighting the pieces of that great impact you had that show to that next team the type of impact you could have on their team as well.
Thank you so much, Anings, for the lovely answer. Great. So here now I would thank you so much, in fact, for the expertise, insights, and information that you shared with us. I'm sure it's really going to be helpful for our all attendees. So now I would like to share a brief story on High Counselor Inception. We are getting there three major reasons due to which most of the people find difficulty in getting jobs. So what are those? So that is lack of information or lack of connection with the company insiders, lack of information about the company job position, and candidates are at times not well prepared for the interview. That's what we feel. So basically, how do we we can solve this problem for you. I mean, High Counselor can solve this problem for you. So what do we do exactly? I'll just brief you about it. Suppose I want to get a job at Facebook, right? I could log into High Counselor platform, first sign in there, then log in there, and log into their website or mobile app, search for the current employee working at Facebook or any company that you're looking forward for, and immediately book a phone or an email appointment for tips and career advice with the same person. You got me right. You can get one-to-one coaching from someone working in your dream company. So our counselors work in all top companies like product, consulting, technology, domains everywhere. So if that is your target industry, definitely check out highcounselor.com. Just like this webinar, we conduct webinars every week. Don't forget to sign up on our platform so that we can help you keep posted about the upcoming awesome webinars. So great. All of our webinar recordings are available on YouTube, right? And YouTube channel. So this webinar recording will also be uploaded in next few days. Moreover, we were live as well today, as you all can see. So do not forget to hit the bell icon to be subscribed for more upcoming webinars. And if you liked our webinar, we request you all to please share it within your network, a word of mouth within your network, so that all your friends can also get the valuable information out of it. And finally, I hope you all found this webinar really helpful. We'll send you a survey link in next couple of days. We'll be hosting events like this regularly. So please let us know what you think so that we can ensure that you are getting maximum benefit and valuable information from these webinars. Thank you so much, Anis, once again for your valuable time and participation. We loved hearing to you. Even we loved your advices. I'm sure they're really going to be helpful for the people who are looking forward to work in Google or their big companies. Thank you so much. And thank you all attendees for attending this webinar. Thank you so much. It really means a lot for us. Thanks.
Thank you for hosting me.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a good day.
You too.